This video is for the analytical writing parts of both the GMAT and the GRE. What's called the analysis of an argument essay on the GMAT is called the analyze an argument essay on the GRE. It's exactly the same essay. The only difference is the prompt on the GRE can be longer. What you need to understand about this essay is it's an exercise in critical reasoning. Specifically, it's a weakening problem. The difference is that instead of choosing the correct multiple choice answer, you write out your thought process. Critical reasoning appears in the multiple choice verbal parts of both the GMAT and the GRE. If you're not familiar with critical reasoning and especially weakening problems, you need to be familiar with those in order to be able to write the essay well. I have posts and videos on both critical reasoning and weakening problems, and I include links to that information in the description. On critical reasoning, you're given a block of text, a paragraph, that's called the premise. If it's a weakening problem, the premise contains facts and conclusion. Facts are what we know, they cannot be changed. The conclusion is basically the author's opinion, what he thinks, feels, believes, or wants. It can go into the future, it hasn't happened yet. It's your job to brainstorm assumptions. Assumptions are the gap, the missing link between facts and conclusion. What the author didn't state, didn't mention, and may have overlooked or not taken into account. If it's a weakening problem, the assumptions actually weaken the conclusion. They make the conclusion look like a bad idea. On this essay, the information in the prompt is a premise. Because it's a weakening problem, it contains facts and conclusion. Sometimes more than one conclusion, sometimes as many as 4, especially on the GRE. That's just to give you more to work with. It's still your job to brainstorm weakening assumptions. What you want to do is you want to take careful notes on the facts and conclusion or conclusions in the premise. Scan those notes and parse the language, and the assumptions should just jump out at you. When it comes to brainstorming assumptions, how much time do you have? We could sit here all night. You could probably brainstorm 2 pages of assumptions because you're always presented with an argument that is obviously flawed. I mean, it's like screamingly bad, and it's your job to say, "What? That's ridiculous." In other words, your job is to be a jerk. You know, that guy, that negative guy who enjoys shooting down everybody else's ideas. You don't want to be friends with that guy. If you have a plan for something that you want to do in your life, make a documentary, for example, you want friends who are validating and supportive, who cheer you on and encourage you to never give up on your dreams. But on this essay, you get to be a jerk. Even though it's easy to brainstorm assumptions, when you get 3 that you like and you feel that you can write about, choose those 3 and those will be your 3 body paragraphs. One really common assumption on this essay is any kind of poll or survey. The author often uses a poll or survey to justify his conclusion, but never gives enough information about it, so it's an easy weakness to attack. You want to examine methodology, sample population, timing, and funding or support. Other common assumptions include, for some reason, anything to do with time or place. Look for discrepancies regarding time or place. Also look for undefined terms, overgeneralizations, overspecifications, and of course, false cause-effect relationships, because correlation does not equal causation. If you're really struggling to brainstorm 3 assumptions, you have a couple of options. You can take one assumption and extrapolate it out into 3 paragraphs by examining it from different angles. Let's say, for example, you're going to go with that poll or survey. You could do one body paragraph about the methodology, another body paragraph about the sample population, and another body paragraph about the timing. Let's say you have only 2 assumptions. What you can do with the 3rd body paragraph is offer what's called an alternative. The author has a noble goal. He's just going about it the wrong way. So you can write about how to get there using different means. Let's say, for example, he wants to improve profit. Well, profit is always 2 things. It's revenue and expenditures, but he is erroneously focused only on expenditures and wants to cut costs like labor. So you can write about how to instead improve revenue by doing some advertising or marketing, for example. If you're not familiar with basic writing concepts like indirect or direct thesis statements, specific examples, supporting points, transitions, you need to be familiar with those in order to be able to write the essay. I include a link to information on that in the description as well. This is not a traditional argumentative essay, but you still need some traditional techniques in order to be able to write it. Your outline for this essay is the classic traditional 5-paragraph structure of introduction and conclusion with 3 body paragraphs sandwiched in between. In the introduction, we're not getting creative here, so I don't expect you to write a hook, but I want you to do 3 things. I want you to assume that the reader of your essay does not have access to the prompt. I just think it's rude to write about stuff and assume that the reader has the same information that you have. Be kind to your reader and assume that he doesn't. So in the first sentence, I want you to summarize the conclusion or conclusions. If you know the author's name, name the author. If not, write something like the author of this argument. Give a verb, thinks, feels, believes, wants, and then summarize the conclusion or conclusions. In the second sentence, I want you to summarize the facts. So this sentence can get quite long. The author of this argument bases his conclusion or conclusions on the following facts, and summarize the facts. The third and final sentence of the introduction is always the thesis statement, and a thesis statement is always 2 things. Its main idea plus supporting points. The main idea of this essay is always the same. It's that the conclusion or conclusions are invalid, and the supporting points are the assumptions that you brainstormed. If you want to write a direct thesis statement, and I prefer that you do, you summarize in the thesis statement the assumptions that you will elaborate later in the body paragraphs. In the body paragraphs, you can give a topic sentence. A topic sentence, like a thesis statement, is always 2 things, its main idea plus the supporting point for that body paragraph. The main idea, again, is the main idea of the whole essay, which is that the conclusion or conclusions are invalid, and the supporting point is the assumption for that body paragraph. After the topic sentence, you get to go on the offensive. Here's where you want to argue it out. And you have basically 2 ways you can do that. You can ask questions. Questioning is a way to weaken your opponent's argument. In fact, in psychotherapy, there is one modality in which the therapist never asks any questions of the client, because asking questions can make a person feel in a subordinate position. So ask questions, ask hypothetical questions. What if, what about, how about, to indicate that something is missing. And as always in essay writing, you want to give specific examples. Specific examples are narratives, little stories that illustrate the point you're trying to make. You can give specific examples that are real, hypothetical, or parallel. A parallel example applies the topic to another topic. If you're writing about business, for example, you can give an example from sports. After the body paragraphs, in the conclusion, the first thing you do is always restate the thesis statement. You can do that in 2 sentences if you want to. If you did not give an alternative in the 3rd body paragraph and you want to do that, here is where you can give an alternative, and then just summarize with doubt. In other words, when it comes to this conclusion, the jury is out. We just don't have enough information in order to be able to make an informed decision. So that's an introduction to the analytical writing parts of the GMAT and the GRE, analysis of an argument or analyze an argument. To read more in detail, including an example prompt and example essay, please visit my website. I include a link to that information in the description as well. The essay that I wrote is like 10 times longer than anything you would have time for on the exam, but I just wanted to give you an example of everything that you can do. And for a private lesson with me, please also visit my website. That information too is in the description. I've worked online with people from all over the world, and I'd love to work with you. Take care.